Hi, I'm Richard McKenzie, co-author of Microeconomics for MBAs. This video module is going to be on cartels. A study of cartels is nothing more than an extension of basic monopoly theory. I have drawn a revised version of the demand and marginal revenue curve for a monopoly, and I've changed the cost structure. I've made marginal cost, long-run marginal cost, constant, and this is so I can eliminate one curve from the graph, because if in fact marginal cost is constant, it's going to be equal to average cost. Now, if we're talking about a competitive market, this market will produce a quantity of QC, and sell the good for a price of PC. If it's a monopoly market, then the monopoly will produce where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue, which is the intersection of marginal revenue curve and the marginal cost curve, or the monopoly will produce a quantity QM. And the monopoly will sell that quantity for a price of PM. And as a result, the monopoly will get, as we've indicated in previous video modules, we'll get a profit box equal to this area here. Now, if the market is organized competitively, you can understand why the producers might want to get together and restrict output, because if they do, then they can raise the price, and they can all divide up the monopoly profits. The problem that the producers have is that once they go after this profit box, they understand that the producers also have an incentive to chisel on any kind of cartel agreement. That is, they all must restrict output to some fraction of QM, and then they must all charge a price of PM. Suppose that there are only 4 producers in this market. That means that each producer will be selling approximately 1/4 of this total output, or QM divided by 4. That means that each producer will be selling at a price of PM, and each producer will get a profit equal to approximately 1/4 of that monopoly profit box. Well, therein lies the problem in maintaining a cartel, because each producer can reason, well, I'm only getting this area here in terms of cartel profits. If I somehow just lower my price a little bit below PM, then I can sell more than QM divided by 4. I might in fact be able to extend the market, take over the entire market, and get more in the way of profits. Well, the moral of the story is, if the cartel has an incentive to if cartel members have an incentive to restrict output, then they have an equal incentive to undercut the cartel agreement. And the more cartel members there are, the more difficult it is going to be to get a cartel agreement, mainly because organizing a cartel can be expensive. The more potential members, the more expense that can be incurred. Also, the more members, the more this quantity must be divided up, and the smaller the share of the profits any one member is going to get. And of course, if a firm is getting only a tiny fraction of this overall monopoly profits, then that firm has all the more incentive to chisel on the cartels. So we might anticipate that cartels can only work with a small number of producers, 2, 4, 6, maybe 8. Once you get beyond that, cartels tend to be unstable. Now, one of the purposes of antitrust legislation is to make illegal cartels, and that makes organization more costly for the participants, and therefore more unlikely. But I guess I should point out that in the event that we have a cartel that's formed and that we have monopoly profits, then the inefficiency that's going to be created by this cartel is going to be equal to the triangular area that we've talked about in other video modules, triangular area ABC. That's the inefficiency, that's the deadweight loss. That is also the gain to be had by breaking up a cartel. And of course, There can be social improvement if the cost of breakup is represented by an area like that, that is the cost of antitrust enforcement. But if in fact the cost of antitrust enforcement is, say, that large, then you can see that the cost of the enforcement is greater than the gains to be had from breaking up the cartel. The lesson to be learned from study of cartels is that yes, firms do have an incentive to get together and restrict output and raise price, but they also have an equally strong incentive to undercut any kind of cartel agreement. This is why we rarely observe cartels lasting for very long in the real world. And cartel agreements are made even more difficult if in fact you have open and free markets. It's no wonder that firms that want to cartelize their market oftentimes turn to government for the protection that they need, that is the cartel agreement. Farmers have turned to government to get the government to force them to restrict output. Why? There's so many farmers that it's very difficult for farmers to collude and to avoid cheating on cartel agreements. Thank you very much for being with me.